want to find Yvonne, but do I want to find Yvonne? I mean, I want to know where she is, but do I want to see her in these swampy areas?
He thinks he got away with murder. So what you have here is a person killed my sister and can walk away scot-free.
Devil's Island, the Brimager murder case. A decorated Marine stands in the White House with President Bush, the picture of American heroism. Fast forward 18 months, he's dismembering his girlfriend's body with a machete in a Panamanian jungle, sending emails from her account to make everyone believe she's still alive. Yvonne Baldelli radiates pure joy as she stands on the dock of Isla Carabinero, her toes dipping into the turquoise Caribbean waters. The September 2011 sun bathes her face in golden light as she holds Bella May, her beloved dog, close to her chest. Behind her, the house she shares with Brimager perches on stilts over the water, exactly the tropical paradise she dreamed about during those long California winters. "I am so happy right now," she writes to her sister, Jennifer Valenzuela. "Brian is already working at local restaurants and bars. We love it. We wake up and go running, then swim in the ocean every morning." At 42, Yvonne has finally found her place in the world. Recently divorced and laid off from her management position at Procter & Gamble, she sees Panama as a fresh start. She brings 2 sewing machines, planning to start a clothing business, making bathing suits for tourists. The water literally sits right in front of her house in Bocas del Toro. The beers are cheap. The happy hours are endless. The karaoke nights at the Cosmic Crab Bar are exactly her scene. Her boyfriend Brian Brimager seems perfect too. A former Marine who served 7 years in the Corps, he was assigned to the Color Guard in Washington, D.C. There are pictures of him at the White House with President George W. Bush, that kind of all-American persona that makes families proud. He's handsome, charming, and now he's pursuing his dream of becoming a singer, performing in waterfront bars with his guitar. "All she wanted was to be with him and love him," Jennifer recalls. "They were so madly in love, I think she was very proud of him because he was a Marine." She used to say things like, "I'm with a Marine." From the outside looking in, it seems like Brian Brimager has everything going for him. The reality brewing beneath the surface is far darker. The 26th of November 2011. Isla Carabinero. The neighbors hear shouting first, then the sound of something or someone hitting the floor. The walls of the stilted houses are thin, and sound carries easily across the water in this close-knit expat community. But domestic fights between Brian and Yvonne have become common enough that most people just turn up their music or walk away. What they don't hear is the final confrontation. The moment when 7 years of Marine combat training turns into murder. The blade of a heavy machete, weighted, designed for clearing jungle brush, slicing into Yvonne's back at least twice. Her blood pooling on the floor of the paradise she'd worked so hard to create. By 10:30 the next morning, Brian Brimager is searching on Yahoo how to remove blood from a mattress. Within days, Yvonne Baldelli's dismembered remains are stuffed into a duffel bag and hidden in the impenetrable swamp just yards from their house. Bella May, the dog Yvonne loved more than anything, disappears too. Brian knows that if the dog is running around, everyone will immediately know his story about Yvonne running off with another man is garbage. Then Brian Brimager does something that shows true, cold-blooded calculation. He starts sending emails from Yvonne's account. To understand how a Marine color guard could become a murderer, you have to go back to 2009, when Brian Brimager first meets Yvonne Baldelli in Southern California. She's recently divorced, working in management, and immediately attracted to this decorated military man. He has that clean-cut Marine look, that sense of purpose and discipline. I don't think she was physically attracted to him, that was a big part of it. Yvonne's older sister Michelle remembers. While Yvonne seemed to be falling in love with Brian, I wasn't so sure. As far as emotionally, Yvonne would put 100% into you and she would expect that back. I didn't get that impression that she was receiving that. That concerned me. She deserved that. But Yvonne is hopeful. Brian talks about his dreams of becoming a musician. When he leaves the Marines in 2011 after his 7-year service and Yvonne gets laid off from Procter & Gamble, they decide to make a fresh start together. Panama offers cheap living, beautiful beaches, and a chance to reinvent themselves. What Yvonne doesn't know is that Brian Brimager is living a double life. While he's making plans with Yvonne for Panama, he's also involved with Amanda Werkhoven, a woman he met while she worked at the White House. In 2010, Amanda gives birth to Brian's daughter. He never tells Yvonne about the child. He never tells Amanda about Yvonne. When Brian and Yvonne arrive in Bocas del Toro in September 2011, the locals quickly get to know them. Joan and Daniel Crabtree, who own the Cosmic Crab, a funky resort and waterfront bar, let Brian play guitar a couple nights a week. He performs for food and free booze. They used to drink a lot, so they were always happy, recalls Lisa Tom, owner of another waterfront bar. What's a lot? An investigator asks. A lot, she emphasizes. Thomas Merton is less diplomatic about Brian's musical talent. He played the guitar good, but when he started to sing, that's when it went away, like a hound dog on a porch. The drinking fuels the fighting. The fighting turns physical. Local bar owner Mark Solzman sees the evidence firsthand on Yvonne's face. As I recall, it was black eyes and blackness around the face and bruises, Solzman says. She was trying to hide it and not speak of it. 2 weeks before her murder, Yvonne takes a disturbing selfie on her laptop that shows a massive black eye on her left eye and swelling in her left cheek. She's documenting the abuse, perhaps building courage to leave. Then Yvonne discovers the truth. Brian has a child with another woman. For Yvonne, who has a medical condition that prevents her from having children, the revelation is earth-shattering. She sold everything she owned to come to the other end of the world with this man, and he's been lying to her about having a daughter. The argument on November 26 probably escalates from there. At some point, Brian Brimager decides he's done with her. He's going to kill her. El 14 de diciembre de 2011, Los Angeles, California. Michelle Baldelli's phone buzzes with a text from an unfamiliar number. This is Brian. May I make arrangements to pick up my truck? Michelle sits up straight, her heart pounding. Brian is back in the U.S.? She calls the number immediately. Where's my sister? Those are the only words out of her mouth. Didn't you get my email? Brian asks calmly. I haven't received any emails from anybody. It's been a few weeks. I'll call you back. Michelle rushes to her computer and discovers an email she'd overlooked the first time Brian has ever written to her directly. I'm sure you've heard by now that Yvonne and I are no longer together. She calls him back. What happened? Brian explains that they got in a fight because Yvonne found out he had a child from somebody else. Then, he says, Yvonne just up and left. Did she leave a note? No. Has she tried to call you since? No. Do you know where she's at? No. I haven't heard from her, Brian. His response chills her. Well, I'm sure she's fine. 10 days pass. Brian still wants his truck. Michelle has another plan. When you come to pick up the truck, I'll be here. That's no problem, she tells him. And I think it's a good idea that you go with me to the police department since you're the last one to see her, and we can fill out a missing persons report. We're already at mid-December and I haven't heard anything from her. That's not right. Something's wrong. Meanwhile, Jennifer Valenzuela finds another overlooked message, this one supposedly from Yvonne. Hi sis, just an update. Brian and I are no longer together. I should have trusted my instincts that he is a lying, cheating ass. I'm headed to Costa Rica with a man I met when we first got to Boca. Something about the email doesn't feel right to Jennifer. There's some things in there that didn't feel right to me, she says. All Yvonne ever wanted to do was be a mother. To find out that Brian had a child, and she sold everything she had to go to the other ends of the world to be with this man, and he didn't tell her about that, I'm questioning what her mental state is right now. 3 weeks later, another email arrives from Yvonne's account. Miss you and everyone at home. I'm starting to get a little homesick. I'm working on plans to get home as early as the second week of January. I've been living with cliffhangers for a while. Love you, sis Yvonne. The family cautiously relaxes. Yvonne is planning to come home for a family reunion in January. They'll see her soon. But January comes and goes. Yvonne never appears. At that point, when we met up with my dad and I told him we haven't heard from her, he said, "Oh no, something's wrong, Michelle recalls. I told my dad she did not leave Panama. That's just my feeling. Michelle Baldelli isn't a technology expert, but she knows someone who is. Her cousin, a tech wizard, agrees to track the IP addresses of Yvonne's emails, the digital fingerprints that reveal where each message originated. The results are startling. The ones from Panama came from Panama, Michelle explains. And then the one that was supposed to be with her being in Costa Rica came from the United States. Where in the United States? One of them looked like they were coming from Dana Point. Dana Point, near where Brian Brimager is now living in Southern California. They were sharing the same IP address, Michelle says, her voice shaking. So Yvonne's email is coming from Brian's computer? The implications hit like a punch to the gut. Brian has hacked into Yvonne's email account and has been impersonating her for months. That's when I knew that he did something to her, Michelle says. And it's not missing person anymore, it's murder. Now it's murder. I said, my sister's dead and I'm never going to see her again. Michelle takes the evidence to the FBI, where she meets Special Agent David Masters. When they brought that to us, we knew that there was absolutely foul play involved, Masters says. The FBI immediately launches an investigation. The family contacts the State Department, the news gets worse. There is no record of her ever leaving Panama and no record of her ever entering Costa Rica. Yvonne Baldelli never went to Costa Rica. She never left Panama. She's been dead this entire time while Brian Brimager has been living his normal life in California. The true crime unfolds like something from a 48 Hours episode, but this isn't television, it's devastatingly real. FBI Special Agent David Masters becomes consumed with the case. He makes multiple trips to Panama, interviewing everyone who knew Brian and Yvonne. The picture that emerges is ugly: choking, dragging, berating, constant abuse. Meanwhile, Yvonne's family can't wait for the FBI to work through diplomatic channels. They travel to Panama and meet with James Winner, a legendary investigator and ex-US intelligence officer with an uncanny ability to solve murders. I think the chances that she's running around in Costa Rica somewhere with some other dude are damn near zero, Winner tells them bluntly. Winner's strategy is to put pressure on the Panamanian government to act. He arranges a press conference where Panamanian police announce for the first time that Yvonne Baldelli is the victim of foul play and name Brian Brimager as the suspect. The news reverberates around the world. Police say within weeks of her disappearance, Brian Brimager returned to the US, got engaged, and married another woman. Tonight, the FBI is calling him a person of interest. The family prints flyers and fans out across Isla Caronero, searching for clues, witnesses who knew the couple come out of the woodwork, describing the abuse they witnessed. To me, he was a scary person, says one local. He was not the kind of person I wanted to be around. Then comes the search of the swamp, that impenetrable jungle just yards from where Brian and Yvonne lived. Volunteers wade through rancid water, fighting spiders and snakes, searching for any trace of Yvonne. You have every kind of bug and critter that you can think of, Winner describes. It's not a place to go slogging around through. They find a purse, a medicine bottle, a mysterious sinkhole, a US passport, but not Yvonne's. I kept asking myself, I want to find Yvonne, but do I want to find Yvonne? Says her niece, Emily Byer. I mean, I want to know where she is, but do I want to see her in these swampy areas? Back in the United States, Masters confronts Brian Brimager at his condo. Brian answers the door, says he was expecting them, and invites them in. For more than 4 hours, while babysitting his young daughter, Brian is questioned. Masters secretly records the interview. Brian sticks to his story about Yvonne leaving him for another man. I come back home and there was a note that said, and I quote, "Going to Costa Rica with a man I've been talking to. F you." But when confronted with the email evidence, Brian begins to stumble. The IP addresses are not coming back from Costa Rica or Panama, okay? Masters says. They're coming back from here. So if she's not hanging out around here, then somebody sent those emails, right? How did those emails get sent? Then Masters spots something. A white Sony laptop sitting in plain view. As soon as I walk in, I see a white Sony Vaio, which is a laptop computer, Masters recalls. And we knew that Yvonne owned a white Sony Vaio laptop that she had taken with her to Panama. I'm thinking we may very well have Yvonne's computer right here. Masters' hunch is correct. It is Yvonne's computer, the same computer used to send those fake emails to her family. On the laptop, investigators find that disturbing selfie Yvonne took 2 weeks before her murder, the photo showing her black eye and swollen cheek. They also find Brian's Yahoo searches about removing blood from a mattress, conducted the morning after Yvonne disappeared. In Costa Rica, investigators obtain ATM photos showing Brian using Yvonne's debit card to withdraw cash from her account after her death. James Winner makes another crucial discovery on Brian's Facebook page. A post about a machete Brian had sold after Yvonne disappeared. The chilling part is Brian's comment, "I've only used it to chop up one stripper." Masters tracks down the person who bought the machete and seizes it as evidence. It's very heavy, Masters notes, holding the weapon. It's weighted and it would inflict a lot of damage. But there's still no body. Without Yvonne's remains, prosecutors don't have quite enough evidence to charge Brian with murder. Sommer 2005, San Diego, California. While the FBI investigates and Yvonne's family grieves, Brian Brimager is living the high life in Southern California. Just months removed from his decorated Marine Corps career, he's happily married to Amanda Werkhoven and living in the suburbs. Photographer Ryan English has no idea of the dark story behind the joyful newlywed photos he takes at La Jolla Beach. Brian has proposed to Amanda just days after Yvonne disappeared in Panama. It wasn't their wedding day, but they came in their wedding attire in a limousine with champagne flowing, English recalls. She looked very happy, very in love, as if she found her Prince Charming. Prince Charming, a man who left his girlfriend's dismembered body in a Panamanian swamp just 2 weeks earlier. Amanda works for a defense contractor while Brian, unemployed, spends much of his time golfing. When 48 Hours tracks him down at the golf course, producer Ryan Smith tries to get answers. John Van Sant with CBS News. We'd like to ask a couple questions, Smith calls out as Brian emerges with his golf clubs. Brian says nothing. Would you please talk to us? Did you murder Yvonne Baldelli? Silence. You can speak to us. You can answer that question, Brian. Why won't you speak with us? Did you have anything to do with her disappearance? Brian drives away without saying a word. When Masters interviews Amanda, he learns that Brian has lied to her too. Brian told her he was going to Panama to decompress after leaving the Marine Corps with some Marine Corps friends. She had no idea Yvonne existed. So he lied to Amanda? An investigator asks. Absolutely, Masters confirms. According to her, Brian is the greatest thing to ever happen to anybody, Masters says, shaking his head. When 48 Hours knocks on Amanda's door, she refuses to comment, grabbing the camera lens when they try to film. Michelle Baldelli watches video of Brian's carefree life with disgust. What goes through your mind when you see him? She's asked. After a long pause, she answers, honestly, it's not surprising now that I know what he's capable of. He thinks he got away with murder. So what you have here is a person who killed my sister and can walk away tangent-free. Le 26 juin 2013. Nearly 2 years after Yvonne's disappearance, FBI Special Agent David Masters slaps handcuffs on Brian Brimager. What did you say to him? He's asked later. I said, turn around, put your hands behind your back. He needed to answer for his crime. Michelle learns about the arrest via text from her father. They got the SOB. I sat down with a sense of relief, she recalls, because now they believed us. Brian is charged with 13 felonies relating to the cover-up of Yvonne's death, but not murder. Not yet. At that point, without having found the body, we didn't have quite enough to bring in the murder charge, explains U.S. Attorney Kevin Harrigan. That changes in September 2013 when a local worker clearing brush on Isla Caronero unbuckles a duffel bag and finds Yvonne's skeletonized remains inside. By the time she was found 2 years later, it was only bones, Masters says. DNA testing confirms it's Yvonne. Her remains were found just a few hundred yards from where her family had spent days searching the swamp. When I first heard the possibility that they found Yvonne, my first reaction was, for me, it's good news because I just feel good we can nail this bastard, Winner says. An autopsy confirms the hellish fact that Yvonne had been dismembered. The most likely cause of death was being stabbed in the back at least twice. Now prosecutors can charge Brian with murder. But there's still one crucial piece of evidence missing. Spring 2014, Michelle Baldelli, who dedicated her life to finding justice for her sister, faces a new enemy, an aggressive form of cancer. She's given just weeks to live. I'm still alive to fight for my life, and I'm still alive to fight for my sister, she says defiantly. In June 2014, Michelle looks healthy. By September, the cancer has ravaged her body, but she agrees to give a deposition, crucial testimony for the prosecution. Brian Brimager sits directly across from her. I'm going to try to ignore him the best I can, Michelle says before entering. Who is Brian Brimager? The prosecutor asks. The defendant. Do you see him in the courtroom here today? Yes, I do. Would you please point to him and describe where he is seated? For the record, he's sitting at the end. Michelle passes out after the exhausting testimony. It's a courageous act of love for her sister. This might be the last thing I get to do for her, Michelle says, over and over and over again, because it'll be on camera forever. Days later, Michelle Dees. Early 2015, after years of diplomatic and legal wrangling, the government of Panama finally agrees to let Brian Brimager be tried for murder on American soil. We came to the conclusion that the only way that Brian would face justice for his murderous act is if he was charged and convicted here in the United States, prosecutors explain. Brian pleads not guilty. The case heads toward trial in 2016. Then investigators make one final dramatic discovery. They remove the screws from the machete's handle and find Yvonne's blood and DNA underneath. They removed these 3 screws and just pulled it out here and conducted testing on the blade and the interior portion of the handle and found blood, Masters explains. Whose blood? Yvonne Baldelli. This now is a slam dunk. You know that this is the tool used to dismember her. Brian had cleaned the blade but hadn't thought to clean underneath the handle. It's the evidence that finally breaks him. Within a week, Brian Brimager pleads guilty to second-degree murder. At his sentencing, he finally admits, after nearly 5 years of lies, to killing Yvonne. I think if you look up in the dictionary evil, and you see Brian's picture in there, he's the ultimate carnage of evil in my mind, says Jim Faust, Yvonne's stepfather. In open court, Brian apologizes to Yvonne's family. His words ring hollow. Brian is a con artist, says Patricia Faust, Yvonne's stepmother. He had our daughter conned, he had his new wife conned, he had her family conned. He was able to live a double life, sometimes a triple life, and people buy what he says. but his actions show that he's not the person he says that he is. Brian Brimager is sentenced to 26 years in federal prison. His earliest release date is February 2037. Number, the ocean's embrace. With the case over, Yvonne's remains are returned to her family and laid to rest at sea in the ocean she loved. To get her remains back and be able to give her a dignified resting place, I can sleep better at night knowing that she's not rotting in some jungle or deep in the ocean somewhere, Jennifer says. Knowing that she loved the ocean, knowing that we were able to put her in a place that she loved, we brought her home. In a way, two people are honored this day. Yvonne Baldelli and her beloved sister Michelle, who battled a Marine to the end and won. She's definitely a hero, Jennifer says of Michelle. She never gave up. To her dying day, she gave all she had. The true crime story of Yvonne Baldelli and Brian Brimager reveals the darkest aspects of domestic violence, deception, and murder. What started as a paradise dream in Panama ended in a swampy nightmare that took years to solve. The case highlights several crucial lessons. First, domestic violence often escalates in isolation, away from family and friends who might intervene. Yvonne's bruises and black eyes were visible to locals in Bocas del Toro, but she was thousands of miles from anyone who could truly protect her. Second, the digital age leaves traces that killers can't completely erase. Brian's sophisticated cover-up, sending emails from Yvonne's account using her debit card, creating an elaborate story, ultimately failed because of IP address tracking and forensic computer analysis. Third, the persistence of family matters. Without Michelle's refusal to accept Brian's lies, without her cousin's tech expertise, without her father's determination, and without their collective decision to hire James Winner and pressure both American and Panamanian authorities, this case might never have been solved. The FBI's special agent, David Masters, deserves immense credit for his methodical investigation across two countries, navigating complex international legal waters to build an airtight case. His attention to detail, spotting Yvonne's laptop in Brian's condo, tracking down the machete, preserving Michelle's deposition, proved essential. Amanda Werkhoven remains a tragic figure in this story. She continues to support and visit Brian in federal prison, apparently still believing in his innocence despite his guilty plea and overwhelming evidence. She too was a victim of Brian's lies, though in a very different way than Yvonne. The Panamanian community of Bocas del Toro was forever changed by this case. What locals call Devil's Island Isla Carnero went from tropical paradise to the site of horrific violence. The waterfront bars where Brian played guitar, the swamps where volunteers searched for Yvonne's body, the stilted house where the murder occurred all remain as reminders of what happened there. For Yvonne's family, there's no true closure, only justice. Jim and Patricia Faust lost a daughter, Jennifer lost a sister, Emily lost an aunt. Michelle lost her life fighting for Yvonne's memory. There's no book for dummies on what to do when your sister has gone missing, Jennifer says. They had to write their own playbook, learning as they went, never giving up, even when the evidence seemed impossible to gather and the body seemed impossible to find. The 48 hours devoted to this case, both by the television program and by countless investigators, volunteers, and family members, represent thousands of hours of grief, determination, and relentless pursuit of truth. In an era when many murders go unsolved, when domestic violence often remains hidden, when perpetrators sometimes escape justice, Yvonne's case stands as proof that persistence can prevail. Brian Brimager will be 73 years old when he completes his prison sentence in 2037. He'll have spent more time in federal prison than he spent in the Marine Corps, more time behind bars than he spent with either Yvonne or Amanda, but no amount of prison time can undo what he did on that November day in 2011. No sentence can bring back the woman who dreamed of starting a swimsuit business on a Caribbean island, who loved her dog Bella May more than anything, who put 100% into relationships and expected the same in return. Yvonne Baldelli deserved better than Brian Brimager. She deserved better than a machete in the back and a duffel bag in a swamp. She deserved the paradise she was seeking, the fresh start she was trying to create, the love she was trying to give. Instead, she got Devil's Island. But through her family's determination and the work of dedicated investigators, she also got justice. Her story, as tragic as it is, serves as a reminder that violence against women must be taken seriously, that abusers often escalate, and that families should trust their instincts when something feels wrong. The ocean where Yvonne's ashes now rest is the same Caribbean sea that once represented hope and new beginnings. Now it represents peace and the end of suffering. She loved the water, she loved the islands, she loved the dream of what her life could become. That dream died with her in Panama. But her memory lives on through the people who refused to let her disappear, who refused to let Brian Brimager's lies become the final word, who fought until the truth emerged from the swamp and justice was served. This is the story the 48 Hours investigation revealed. Not just a true crime tale of murder and deception, but a story of love, persistence, and the unbreakable bonds of family. Michelle Baldelli's dying words were about her sister. Her final act was testifying against Brian. Her legacy is that Yvonne's killer will spend decades in prison. In the end, the Marine color guard who once stood with presidents became just another murderer in federal custody. The all-American hero revealed himself to be a monster. The paradise in Panama became a crime scene, and a family's worst nightmare became a case study in how determination, technology, and justice can eventually triumph over evil. Brian Brimager's prison term ends in February 2037. Yvonne Baldelli's family's grief has no end date.